Every year, nearly 10 million refrigerators are thrown away in America. That's over 1 billion pounds of steel, copper, and aluminum just sitting in a graveyard. Most people think they're worthless junk. But inside each one is a treasure most of us never see. I went inside the facility where they rip these machines apart, extract the poison, and turn scrap into cash. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how this hidden industry works. 10 million refrigerators trashed each year. 1 billion pounds of steel and copper, full of ozone-destroying chemicals. Most wind up in landfills, poisoning the ground. But a hidden network of recyclers can strip them down, reclaim nearly everything, and turn waste into wealth. The problem? Few fridges ever reach them. This is what actually happens inside the graveyard. Picture the graveyard. Mountains of dented white metal stretching as far as you can see. Every one of these machines was once the pride of someone's kitchen. Now they sit rusting in a holding pen, waiting. 10 million refrigerators dumped in America each year. Each one holds more than 120 pounds of recyclable steel and copper coils worth real money. In total, that's over 1 billion pounds of metal, but only 6 out of 10 ever make it to a facility like this. The rest vanish. So, where do they go? Millions end up in landfills or worse, tossed into empty lots, gullies, and back roads. And this isn't just an eyesore. Inside each fridge is a chemical cocktail, refrigerants called Freon, along with oils and foam insulation, all loaded with ozone-destroying compounds. By federal law, every last molecule must be captured and destroyed. Release just 1 pound of old Freon into the air, and you've done the climate damage of driving a car across the entire country. Yet for a certain kind of operator, the quick cash is too tempting. They'll cut the lines, let the gas hiss into the sky, yank out the copper, and toss the rest. No paperwork, no oversight, and that underground network is massive. It's one reason the EPA's Responsible Appliance Disposal Program only recovers a fraction of what's actually out there. The real graveyard is scattered in 1,000 illegal dump sites you never see. But here, inside the legal recycling facility, they do it differently. They have a machine that costs $2 million, designed to swallow a refrigerator whole and separate every element. Before any shredding begins, there is a single, terrifying step. One wrong move, and the entire building becomes a toxic disaster zone. That step is what keeps every operator up at night, and it's exactly what they're about to face. The bay door rolls up. A dented refrigerator, grease-stained and abandoned, rides the conveyor into the sealed extraction chamber. Technicians in full hazmat suits lock the door behind it. This is the moment. They connect 2 hoses to the compressor ports. Inside the steel pipes, the refrigerant is still under pressure. A silent, invisible threat. One cracked seal, one misaligned coupling, and that gas escapes. In seconds, the room becomes a toxic cloud. They pump the refrigerant into a pressurized cylinder. The chemical being removed today is R-22, a hydrochlorofluorocarbon. Pound for pound, it traps heat 1,000 times more than carbon dioxide. The operator watches the gauge needle twitch. When it hits 0, the system holds for 15 seconds to confirm no backflow. Only then does anyone breathe. That's the legal way. But out on the street, a scrapper with a pair of bolt cutters doesn't wait. He cuts the line, hears the hiss, and walks away with $10 worth of copper. The gas billows upward. That single cut can undo years of climate progress. And it happens thousands of times a day across the country. Once the fridge is degassed, the compressor gets torn out. It looks like a black metal tumor bolted to the side. Inside that shell, coiled copper windings are soaked in oil. A standard shredder can't crack it. This facility uses a specialized cutting machine. 20,000 pounds of hydraulic force come down on a blade, peeling the steel casing open in 40 seconds. What spills out is greasy copper wire, worth 12 times the scrap steel price. In this plant, nothing is left to chance. Even the oil is captured, filtered, and reused. The stripped shell now moves deeper into the line. The machine everyone talks about, the hammer mill, waits at the end of the tunnel. It's a spinning drum of forged hammers weighing 200 pounds each, spinning at over 1,000 rotations per minute. When the refrigerator hits those hammers, it doesn't break. It explodes. In under 30 seconds, a full-size fridge becomes a confetti of steel, aluminum, plastic, and polyurethane foam. A series of magnets pulls out the steel. Eddy current separators kick out the aluminum and copper. Conveyor belts carry the valuable metals to different bunkers while the foam chunks ride toward their own fate. And this is where the story takes a turn. That foam insulation. It's the miracle material that keeps your ice cream frozen. But its blowing agent is often a potent greenhouse gas, trapped inside each tiny cell. Most recyclers bundle the foam and ship it straight to an incinerator. It burns hot, produces energy, but releases that trapped gas anyway. Some call it energy recovery. Others call it a loophole. The graveyard can't hide everything. So here's the problem nobody talks about. Even if this facility runs 24 hours a day, it only processes a few hundred fridges per SAS shift. Millions more never see the inside of this plant. They sit piled in ravine lots outside small towns or rust in the back corners of landfills. Their refrigerant already vented, their copper stripped, their steel left to oxidize into the dirt, and the people who dumped them there, they're ghosts. But tracking them reveals a trail far darker than dump sites. It leads to shell companies, junk haulers with no permits, and a labyrinth of shadow contractors who get paid by the load, no questions asked. It leads to neighborhoods where the air already struggles, and where one more abandoned fridge is just part of the landscape. And it leads to the reason that, until tonight, nobody has been willing to follow the truck all the way to the end of the line. Tonight, we follow the truck. It's a white box van, no markings, tinted windows, picks up behind a suburban appliance store after midnight. Loads 4 dead fridges still dripping condensation. Instead of heading toward the permitted recycling center, it turns onto a county road, then a dirt track. The driver kills the headlights and rolls to a stop in a clearing littered with husks. This is the graveyard the public never sees. 50 fridges stacked 3 high, hoses already snipped, copper missing, doors torn off. The ground underneath is stained black with compressor oil. The driver unloads and disappears. But this is not the final destination. The same fridges reappear 2 days later on a flatbed trailer hooked to a different truck. That trailer heads to a scrapyard near the port where international shipping containers are stacked like shoeboxes. The loading manifest says mixed scrap metal. Nobody checks inside. And that's the genius of the global loophole. Just one 40-foot container can hold 200 stripped refrigerators. Their foam insulation still intact, still loaded with pentane or cyclopentane blowing agents, still hiding the last dregs of refrigerant in the oil. And from this port alone, a dozen containers leave every week bound for West Africa and Southeast Asia. Why there? Because those countries lack the enforcement or the equipment to process these machines safely. Instead, the fridges are cracked open with hammers in open-air lots, releasing every trapped gas directly into the atmosphere. The steel gets melted in backyard furnaces that belch black smoke. The foam gets burned in piles, sending hydrogen cyanide into the lungs of the people who live next door. Children pick through the wreckage for copper wire, their bare feet in soil that later tests will show has lead levels 400 times the safe limit. This isn't recycling. It's the export of a toxic curse. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Some of the containers we traced didn't belong to shadow junk haulers. They belonged to a logistics partner used by one of America's biggest appliance retailers, the same company that runs slick commercials, promising to responsibly recycle your old fridge when you buy a new one. The paper trail showed they were subcontracting to a broker who then sold the worst units to overseas buyers for cash. It was cheaper than paying for degassing and shredding. The green promise was a curtain. Behind it, the same old dump and run. That discovery landed on the desk of an environmental investigator named Marcus Cano. He'd spent 3 years building a map of illegal fridge dumping across 30 countries. When he overlaid satellite imagery with port manifests, he found something terrifying. A steady, growing stream of nearly 4 million discarded cooling units, moving from rich nations to poor ones every single year. It wasn't a few bad actors. It was a system buried inside the global recycling trade, invisible to everyone who wasn't looking. The health data hit hardest. Towns near these foreign dump sites showed clusters of rare respiratory cancers. Miscarriage rates 3 times the national average. A groundwater study in one community found refrigerant breakdown chemicals at concentrations lethal to aquatic life. And yet, the trade is booming because the scrapyard owners overseas pay more for a container of scrap than a domestic recycler will pay for the entire annual contract. The economics are perfectly upside down. But in the smallest, most poisoned village on Marcus's map, something unexpected was stirring. A woman named Amara had started collecting air samples with a handheld sensor she bought from a Canadian lab. She posted the results on a makeshift community board, and when a local official tried to silence her, she streamed the confrontation on a borrowed phone. The footage reached 2 million views in a week, and it cracked open the entire supply chain in a way no government report ever had. Now, the truck drivers are refusing to cross the county line. The port is starting to sweat, and Marcus is on a plane carrying a document that names every company that allowed this to happen. The graveyard is about to get a name. That name lands like a bomb. Marcus Kano touches down in the capital and walks straight into a meeting with Port Authority officials who, until this morning, denied any knowledge of illegal appliance shipments. He places the document on the table, bills of lading, satellite photos, and a shipping container number currently sitting in customs. Within hours, a raid order is signed. The container is cracked open at dusk. 200 refrigerators, stacked like bodies, compressors leaking black sludge, foam fragments spilling through busted plastic liners. Air sampling inside the container registers refrigerant concentrations 40 times the safe workplace limit. The manifest claimed mixed scrap metal. The actual cargo is a silent environmental weapon. That night, 3 more containers are impounded. The logistics company that handled them belongs to the subsidiary of a household name in American retail. A company whose shareholders, by Thursday morning, will be asking very loud questions. The backlash is instant. Within 72 hours, the retailer announces it is severing its contract with the overseas broker and funding a full audit of its entire appliance recycling chain. 3 executives take early retirement. The EPA announces a new rule that will require GPS tracking on all bulk appliance waste shipments moving within 500 miles of a port. For the first time, federal inspectors begin cross-referencing recycling certificates with actual container contents. Meanwhile, in Amara's village, the air has already changed. An international medical team arrives with portable diagnostic units, screening children for heavy metal poisoning. The government, cornered by the viral footage, bulldozes the open-air dump and covers it with 6 feet of clay and topsoil. A proper degassing facility, the first in the region, opens 12 kilometers away, funded by a coalition of environmental NGOs. Amara's sensor readings, now verified by independent labs, become the basis for a permanent community air monitoring network. The power of a single handheld device and one unflinching live stream had done what 30 years of diplomatic pressure could not. Back at the legal recycling plant in Ohio, the reverberations are different. Business triples overnight. The company signs contracts with 4 new retailers, all of whom now demand full chain of custody documentation for every unit. They install a new extraction system designed specifically to capture the blowing agent from polyurethane foam, a process that until last year was considered too expensive. The foam gets sealed inside vacuum bags and fed into a cryogenic condenser that separates the pentane gas from the plastic residue. The gas is compressed into cylinders and sold back to the plastics industry as a chemical feedstock. The plastic becomes fence posts. Nothing leaves, nothing vents. And a final detail few people talk about: that recovered steel, that aluminum, that very copper winding that once chilled bottles of milk in a kitchen from 1992. It doesn't just become scrap bales. It gets melted, alloyed, and rolled into automotive panels. The copper ends up in the stator windings of electric vehicle motors. The refrigerator graveyard, properly served, feeds the green revolution. The loop closes. Because for every illegal container stopped, 1,000 tons of metal stay in a domestic stream that is 85% more efficient than mining virgin ore. That's not just a statistic. That's a concrete bridge from the way we used to dispose of the world to the way we will. And here is the thing. Most people still don't grasp. When you drag an old fridge to the curb or let the delivery guy haul it away, you are not just discarding an appliance. You are pulling a lever on a global machine. That machine either pumps poison into the air and soil of the world's poorest places, or it feeds a circular economy that builds cars, wind turbines, and the next generation of cooling technology. The difference comes down to a single decision: who picks it up and where they're really taking it. The graveyard is always watching, and right now, it's filling faster than we can clean it. If this changed the way you'll look at your old appliances, there's a button right here you should press. Subscribe. Because we're about to go even deeper into the hidden systems that run our world. I'll see you in the next one.